Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of 1990's Represent. We're starting off our second cycle of 1991 with an album, and on this episode, we're talking about Nirvana's classic masterpiece, Nevermind. One of my favorite albums, probably of all time. I didn't get into Nirvana right away. I was actually didn't really start listening to Nirvana until maybe 1995, maybe 1996. I had seen a few music videos from them, the In Bloom video, and then of course like Smells Like Teen Spirit. But really didn't get into them right away. I remember watching MTV periodically back then, and the news that broke of Kurt's passing in 1994. I remember seeing that, and then when Dave Grohl started the Foo Fighters, I then started kind of going back and listening to some Nirvana stuff. I think the album that actually made me kind of appreciate them as a band was their Unplugged, the MTV Unplugged from, I want to say, 1994. Friend and I listened to that album back. I think his brother had it because I talked about him multiple times in the past episodes, where his older brother was a DJ for the high school dances and things like that, and just had a ton of music. And that Unplugged album was one of them. And I remember listening to it, and I think it was Come As You Are, where it was just kind of them doing this acoustically made it sound really incredible. So then I ended up going back and listening through their other albums and became a pretty big fan of them. But I wasn't a fan of them kind of right away. I really didn't start getting into music seriously until 1995. That's kind of where I say my music taste started essentially. I would listen to music before that, but 1995 is when I really started taking it super seriously. But yeah, today we're talking about Nevermind. I have some notes here about it. Actually own this album on vinyl. So this is the 2009 pressing of it. Kept the hype sticker on it actually, because that's how it came. But yeah, I own it on vinyl. Again, 2009 version of the album. But I want to say I picked this one up in 2011. But it's just an iconic, classic album. Again, one of my probably favorite albums of all time. And then further insights from this, you can also pick up in, I love this book. This is Dave Grohl's The Storyteller. So obviously there's a bunch of stuff in here about his time with Nirvana, as well as before being in Nirvana and then after Nirvana when he formed the Foo Fighters and all that. So highly recommend both the album and the book. We got our notes here. I'm going to have to jump around a little bit in this notes because I think in the first album we did for 1991 in the first cycle was Red Hot Chili Peppers' Blood Sugar Sex Magic, and that was released very closely to this. There's a ton of just amazing albums that were released relatively very short, very closely together. But Nevermind by Nirvana, first released September 24th, 1991. I'm actually going to put a bookmark there so I can get back to it when I had to jump back to the previous notes. Like I said, it was released very closely to a bunch of other albums, so I'm going to actually go back and find that entry for the Red Hot Chili Peppers album. So yeah, basically there was 7 other historic albums released around the same time period as this. Let's see. I don't think it actually says within 44 days. So within 44 days, all these albums were released. So one of them is, of course, the one we just talked about, Red Hot Chili Peppers' Blood Sugar Sex Magic. We had Metallica's Black Album, Pearl Jam's 10, Guns N' Roses' Use Your Illusion 1 and Use Your Illusion 2. Let's see here. Soundgarden's Bad Motorfinger. And then, of course, Nirvana's Nevermind. Now let's jump back to our notes for Nevermind, and we'll get right back to that. And there we go. This is their second studio album. Bleach came out in 1989, and this is the follow-up to that. They brought in Butch Vig as a producer, and just being a huge fan of Garbage, I absolutely love Butch Vig. He's an amazing producer, an amazing drummer. but they brought him in to produce this album. And there's a couple videos I'm going to link in the description, and it's actually Butch Vig sitting at a mixing console describing. I think the two videos that I will be linking will be for In Bloom and Smells Like Teen Spirit, and he just kind of breaks down the recording process. There's some really interesting insights about how he basically convinced Kurt Cobain to do double vocals. He actually had Dave do those backing vocals as well, and he's like clicking stuff on the mixing console, like muting other tracks. So you can just hear the isolated backing vocals by Kurt and Dave, and it's an awesome looking thing. Like, he's an amazing producer. It's very, very critically and commercially successful. I'm actually going to bring up some reviews, initial reviews, and then retrospectively, it's actually gotten higher reviews since then. So let me pull up the original reviews here. So these were the original basic reviews for the album. They're still pretty good, but the more recent ones are better. But Chicago Tribune gave it a 4 out of 4. Entertainment Weekly gave it an A minus. The LA Times gives it, looks like, a 3.5 out of 4. NME gave it a 9 out of 10. Q gave it a 4 out of 5. Rolling Stone gives it 3 out of 5. Select gave it a 4 out of 5. And The Village Voice gave it an A minus. So pretty critically successful overall, like initially when it was released, but also just incredibly commercially successful. Let's see here. Went to number 1 on the Billboard 200, and it was selling about 300,000 copies per week. So very just successful, both critically and commercially. Because going back to Butch Vig, they were brought on because the band liked what he did with Killdozer, which I think is a Madison, Wisconsin band. Probably like produced and recorded at the Smart Studios in Madison, which was Butch Vig's studio and Steve Marker and all them. Garbage's studio for a while before they eventually all like moved to, or not all, but most of them moved to LA. They record out there now, I think. But just a lot of really great like local bands to that area had to use that studio, as well as like Nirvana used it. Nirvana split their time between, I think, like a Hollywood studio and there. Garbage released a bunch of stuff and recorded a bunch of stuff there as well. There's a documentary, I think it's on Vimeo. I backed it when it was on Kickstarter, and it's called The Smart Studio Story or something like that. And it's kind of a documentary of the history of that recording studio. And it goes into like the history of the bands that would play around that area, and then all the bands as well. It's definitely worth checking out. And I think that's called The Smart Studio Story. I've seen it a couple times because I like I said, backed it when it was like on crowdfunding. But yeah, they brought in him again. Let's see here. Chad Channing, who was the original drummer, left, and then Kurt and Chris saw a Scream performance, Scream being Dave Grohl's band prior to Nirvana, and they really liked him, and I think Chris reached out to him, and then kind of rest is history, so to speak. But Chris basically said, like, as soon as like Dave Grohl was brought in, everything just kind of like fell into place, and it all just clicked. Let me see here. So that apparently the budget on this album was about $65,000. And they also got like a $200-something-thousand advance from the record company, but Kurt, kind of from what I was reading, wanted to keep the production costs down, so they bought like cheaper guitars, like Streamer Stratocasters that were easier to hold left-handed and things like that. But just based on how well it sold and how much it cost to make the album, it's just they didn't spend a ton of money making the album, but it made a ton. Just so like the like money invested basically like paid off like multiple times over. Now we're going to talk about the retrospective ratings. These are kind of more modern ratings for the album, and basically they're all higher than the original ratings essentially. AllMusic gave it a 5 out of 5. The AV Club gives it an A. Blender gave it a 5 out of 5. It looks like Daily Telegraph gives it 5 out of 5. Pitchfork gives it a 10 out of 10. Pitchfork is usually known for kind of being a little harsh sometimes, so a 10 out of 10 for them is pretty good. Q gave it a 5 out of 5. Rolling Stone gave it a 5 out of 5. Rolling Stone Album Guide gives it a 5 out of 5, and so does Spin. So basically, the retrospective reviews are just much better, just based on probably like the album being like over 30 years old at this point. It's basically culturally and kind of like impactful. It pushed kind of grunge and alternative rock kind of into the forefront and into the mainstream. I don't know how successful some of the other grunge or alternative bands of that time would have been without this album. But yeah, this album definitely kind of ushered in a kind of like a new era. And I remember like this was like on like local radio stations, like one of the local stations used to be like a pop station, and around I want to say like the early to mid 90s they switched up to be a more alternative rock station, and that was really cool because they were playing like Nirvana, they were playing Stone Temple Pilots, Soundgarden, Green Day, and all that kind of stuff. So this kind of made that genre like more accessible and also just more popular overall. We're going to jump into our track listing now on this album. Just pull it down here. Looking at 13 tracks for a total of about 49 minutes. I think it's 40, like 42 if you don't count the hidden track. Let me see the length here. Yeah, so 42 minutes or 49 minutes, depending on if you listen to the kind of bonus hidden track at the end. Let me pull back up so I can find it. Let's go here. All right, so 13 tracks, 49 minutes. Track 1, it just opens up incredibly strong with "Smells Like Teen Spirit," one of their most iconic songs, probably in their library. I would say like there's some songs I like better, but "Smells Like Teen Spirit" is definitely probably like their most iconic. I remember watching an MTV music video countdown in early 1996. It was like top 100 videos or something like that. I don't know if it was like if there was a quantifier like top 100 videos of the 90s or what, if it was just top 100 videos like overall. Because I remember seeing it and it was more recent music at the time, like stuff from like the 90s or what have you. But "Smells Like Teen Spirit" was their number one video on that particular countdown. Track 2, probably my favorite track on the album is "In Bloom." Absolutely love "In Bloom." Probably my favorite, might be my favorite Nirvana track overall. Yeah, track 2 is "In Bloom." Track 3 is "Come As You Are." Track 4 is "Breed." Track 5 is "Lithium." Track 6 is "Polly." Track 7 is "Territorial Pissings." Track 8 is "Drain You." "Drain You" is also an amazing song. Probably my three favorite songs on the album are "In Bloom," "Smells Like Teen Spirit," and "Drain You." I would then say probably like if I was gonna do 4, I'll probably throw "Lithium" in there as well. But yeah, track 8 is "Drain You." Track 9 is "Lounge Act." Track 10 is "Stay Away." Track 11 is "On a Plane." Track 12 is "Something in the Way," and another amazing track. I remember that was used recently in the Matt Reeves Batman film, like at least in the trailer. It may have been in the film. I don't remember, but it was like it fit very well. So yeah, "Something in the Way" is an amazing track. And then the 13th track, which is the bonus kind of hidden track, is "Endless Nameless." So 12 tracks or 13 if you're going with that hidden track there, for about 42 minutes or 49 minutes in length. It's just an incredible album. 1991 just has a lot of amazing music. So whenever we get back to 1991 in this series, there's a ton of just amazing albums to discuss, including this and the albums I kind of listed off that came out within 44 days of this album. But probably my favorite album from them overall. I think like the only album I don't love is probably Bleach. Bleach is pretty good, but it's not my favorite. I think my favorites are probably definitely Nevermind and then In Utero or some stuff like that. If you want to listen to it, there's like Incesticide. It's also a really cool collection, but to me, like Nevermind is just iconic and classic. But that's going to do it for this video. We'll be back again in a few days. We'll be doing a movie from 1991. Then we'll be moving into a video game and then moving further, then back into 1992 and so on. But that's going to do it for now. So remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe. We'll see you again next time. Thanks again for watching. Take care and have a good one. See ya.